This video is about a really important subject. Hearing loss and tinnitus are serious things. No matter how many extra frags you think loud volumes are gaining you now, I doubt it will be worth irreversible hearing loss later in your life, or an endless ringing in your ears forevermore. I am no expert on the matter, but I feel comfortable enough to talk about the stuff in this video. I hope to raise awareness to the problems and what can be done about them. Hopefully somebody more knowledgeable will come along to provide more information later on. A few videos ago I established that, to hear things better in Counter-Strike, you shouldn't turn your volume up, because you'll go deaf. But there's something else you could try. Compression. No, not the WinZip kind of compression. I'm talking about dynamic range compression. No, not high dynamic range. It's best I show you an example. Here's a song I made, represented in audio waves. There's a reason I've kept it as quiet as it is, which you'll soon discover. For if I compress it, it makes the quieter bits of the sound louder, transforming it into this. And if I do it again several times, this. With enough compression, the whole song will become the same volume, which as you can hear is really over the top, and you don't want that because it's deafeningly loud. Even though what you're hearing here is 10 decibels quieter than my voice, which means it should sound half as loud. But it still sounds loud, doesn't it? That's the power of compression. But while it's gotten louder, the maximum volume for the song hasn't increased. It's just that the whole song is now at that maximum volume, instead of only hitting it for a couple of brief moments. You're effectively getting more sound from the same thing. It's actually been a controversial topic in music, known as the Loudness War. If you compare a song first released in the 80s to a more modern re-release, the chances are the new one will sound a hell of a lot louder. In a way, this is a good thing, since you won't have to keep turning the volume up and down depending on which track is playing, or even which bit of a track is playing. So in a way, it makes sense for all newer songs to be compressed to a certain extent. But the downside is that it all being equally loud could detract from a song's artistic value. Should the build-up be the same volume as the crescendo? Does that make sense? Do you care? And for extreme examples of compression, you need look no further than adverts and clickbait YouTubers, who have always ramped it up to be as loud and obnoxious sounding as possible. But what's this got to do with Counter-Strike? Imagine you want to hear footsteps. Instead of turning the volume up and potentially damaging your hearing, you could instead turn down your volume, enable compression, and quieter sounds will still sound louder and easier to hear. Here's an example with no compression.
Hi guys, I'm really sorry, my microphone is so broken.
As you can hear, making the game loud enough to hear the footsteps clearly makes the gunshots and voices too loud. Now, let's enable compression.
Hi guys, I'm really sorry, my microphone is so broken.
This compression is over the top, but it demonstrates what the effect can do. Even though I turn the volume down a bit for this one, footsteps still sound louder than before, but voices and gunshots are nowhere near as unpleasant on your ears. They're still not nice, and they still drown out the quieter sounds. But once they've stopped, you're back to hearing the quiet sounds in almost superhuman clarity again. Short of removing gunshots and voices entirely, you can't get much better than this. This sounds great, doesn't it? Literally. But there's a dark side to compression. I'm a big believer in habit, reflex and routine, and since compression would constantly alter the volume of things, I'd fear it would make it harder to pinpoint where sounds are coming from. If you're like me, you're used to what footsteps at short A sound like. You use the direction and volume to pinpoint the location. But if you compress the volume, distant footsteps would end up being a similar volume to closer ones. The volume of the sound would no longer give you information, meaning that you have to rely solely on the direction it's coming from and your knowledge of the map. I don't know how much of a problem this would be. I'd imagine it would be a bit of one. But then again, there is a constant in Counter-Strike, and those are the ambient sounds. Every bit of a map has a soundscape, which sounds something like this. In the past, these sounds used to be louder, but in recent times they have been kept rather quiet relative to the other game sounds, probably because they realised players would want to be able to hear footsteps and stuff. But rather than removing background sounds entirely, I think having them constantly and quietly droning on has a benefit. Because while compression will fight to keep everything as loud as possible, having ambient sounds present will help put others into perspective. Like, if footsteps are a similar volume to the background sound, even with compression, you'll know that they're a long way off because they'll sound about the same volume as the background sounds are. With compression, ambient sounds actually help you to determine the volume of other sounds. I mentioned voices earlier. Here's an example of what an average round might sound like.
Someone go underpass, please. Orange, go underpass.
What? No, not with an orange.
Yes.
What? Go underpass yourself.
Fuck it, I'm gonna go. Fucking
Play
bitches.
like a silver, running like that's really good idea.
Quiet! We lost that round, but that's besides the point. Unlike my team, I suspect that most people use an external program like Discord, which they use to communicate with teammates. This could be dangerous. Like, you know how you listen to music through earbuds when you're walking down the street, and if there's loud traffic, you turn your music's volume up so that you can still hear it. It's all too easy to forget how loud it is, until the next time you turn your MP3 player on and are almost deafened by the volume. Were you really listening to it at that volume? Yes you were. You just didn't realise it at the time. Plus your ears close up after a while, but that's something I'm not going to cover. But I imagine in-game, team chat on Discord is similar to the traffic phenomenon. You want to be able to hear your teammates over the sound of the game, so turn the sound of Discord up louder than the game itself. Which again, won't be good for your hearing. The solution to this would be compression. But there's also another feature that could help, known as auto-ducking, which lets you prioritise the volume of some sounds over others. Let's listen to an example. At the moment I am talking and you can probably hear me quite clearly. But if I play music at the same time, you'll now struggle to hear what I'm saying. Auto-ducking makes the music quieter whenever I'm talking, returning to normal volume whenever there's a pause. I could probably have configured it to be less abrupt than this, but oh well. Auto-ducking lets you keep your game and a chat program at the same volume, and you'll still be able to hear both. Turns out that Discord has a setting for this, to give it priority over whatever game you're playing while using it. You'll want to slide this attenuation slider up. The more you do this, the quieter your game will become whenever somebody's talking to you on Discord. The downside is that somebody endlessly breathing into their mic on Discord will silence your game. The plus side is that you'll be able to hear more clearly for the rest of your life than if you had just turned Discord up louder than your game in the first place. Of course, Valve could do things on their end to the sounds themselves, adjusting the footsteps to remain louder further away, dropping off into silence more suddenly. All of these things would help to reduce the reliance on loud volumes. I never expect a response from Valve, but would love to know what they think of this topic, and how it has influenced the new gun and audio features that they've been adding to Counter-Strike in these past few years. For now, if you want to game with audio compression enabled, whether you can or not totally depends on what kind of sound drivers and software you have. For me, I can go to sound settings, device properties, enhancements, and have an option called loudness equalization, which, you guessed it, is compression. And a last word of warning. All else being equal, enabling compression and keeping your volume the same as you had it before will make the average sound louder, which I have no doubt will be worse for your ears. Compression should be used in conjunction with lower volumes coming out of your speakers. The quieter sounds can still be heard, the loudest parts will no longer deafen you, and your ears will thank you in the long term. You can tell when you have compression enabled, because if the game's been quiet for a while, the background sounds will get louder, and you'll start worrying that gunshots will be deafening. But of course, they won't be. That's the power of compression, folks. I have several other videos on sound in games. Here was my first one talking about how Counter-Strike's sound could be improved. Here's a video demonstrating CSGO's surround sound. And here's one on their occlusion tech, which was introduced later.